Okay, seriously, there has never been an easier time to create, grow, and especially automate an online business from home or even on the beach from your laptop or cell phone. I did it, and yesterday while I was doing this, I made $8,684 from just one of my multiple automated businesses. The world is loaded with opportunities for you to create an online business that can earn passive income. Now, some people say there's no such thing as passive income. Everything takes some work, and I definitely agree with this. But if you do it correctly, you can put the work and effort in on the front end so that later you can have a business that's basically an automatic cash printing machine. This is exactly what I did. And I'm not gonna say it was easy because it absolutely wasn't. It took a ton of work and sacrifice, but it was absolutely worth it. And now I have more freedom than I ever imagined. And it's because of these 7 really important things that you cannot skip. Upgrade your mindset. I'm saying upgrade your mindset rather than change it because A, you don't want to completely eliminate all the good that's running in your programming, and B, because your mindset, which is really just your thoughts and beliefs, is just software or a series of apps, and they run on autopilot primarily in your subconscious. There are both pros and cons to this. The con is that a lot of negative apps have been installed and running for a really long time, possibly your entire life, and they can be really difficult to remove or upgrade. The pro is that it absolutely is possible to remove, replace, and upgrade them. It's just gonna take some commitment and a bit of work on your end. For example, you might have a really limiting belief relating to your earning potential. Many years ago, $100,000 a year seemed like a ceiling for me, and I was okay with that. It seemed like a lot at the time, and it wasn't really hard to imagine achieving this goal. Now, it's probably because everyone I was surrounded by growing up, including my family, friends, people in the town that I lived in, all had this mindset that exchanging your time for $100K per year in a safe career or job was a pretty high measure of success. And what do you know? I achieved this at a pretty young age, and I was reasonably happy with it. I even stayed around that earning level for probably a decade before I realized that my thoughts and beliefs were really limiting me. Once I started to work on upgrading my mindset, it started getting easier to imagine myself earning more. And what followed shortly was the tripling of my income. I continued to upgrade, and now I truly understand at a very deep and intimate level that there are no limits to my earning potential. Now I know the big question is, dude, how the f do I upgrade my mindset? There are a lot of ways to do this, and this is definitely a topic that I'll cover in other videos, but for now, I suggest starting with identifying any limiting beliefs that you have about finances and especially your abilities. For example, do you think that all successful entrepreneurs were born with some trait that you'll never have? If you really believe this, then you'll subconsciously give up before you ever get started. You need to find these beliefs and abolish them. Establish specific goals. Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People was such a huge game changer for me. One of the most profound but also extraordinarily obvious things was habit 2. Begin with the end in mind. So basically, create a clear picture of the outcome you want in your mind first, and then reverse engineer that to figure out the exact steps you need to take to get there. And it doesn't have to be perfect from the start because you'll continue tweaking this as you progress. So for me, the end goal started something like, I want to create a business that makes me rich. But that's not nearly specific enough to create a clear plan. And I think this is what most people do. They create this very vague image and have no clue how to get started. Now, while this image will become more refined over time, you need to at least start with these two very important things: a money and time component. Specifically, how much money do you want to make monthly, and how much time do you want to work for that money? You'd be surprised at how many people have zero clue of how much money they want to make and how much time and effort they want to put into a business. I'd say that like 9 out of 10 people that talk to me about starting a business, when I ask them how much money they want to make, they literally can't give me an answer even after like 10 minutes of thinking about it. How can you possibly create something, a business, to achieve a specific goal, make a certain amount of money, without knowing what your goal is? When you're searching for a job or going to school for a career, do you ignore what the salary is? No, of course not. It's like the first thing that you consider. How much money you want to make and how much time you want to put into it will affect pretty much your entire business plan, from the product or service you want to offer, who your prospects are, whether or not you'll have employees, and even what jurisdiction you'll operate in. At minimum, you should calculate how much money you need to cover the costs of the lifestyle you want to live. Not your current lifestyle, the lifestyle you want. And that might be the same if you're just starting a side hustle to eventually replace your day job, and that's fine. So if the lifestyle you want to live will cost you $50K a month, that's your initial goal. $50K a month or $600K per year after expenses and taxes. The next thing is, how much time will it take to run your business? Now, this is separate from the initial effort to build the business and get to that. For example, I initially said that I would like the business to take about 10 hours per week to run, not to build. Building took much more than that. Many 16 and 20-hour days with enormous sacrifices to my social life. I put a ton of work in on the front end, but eventually I did achieve that 10-hour per week target. And now everything is on complete autopilot. So if you're looking to replace your day job because you hate it, maybe you're fine with 40 hours a week, but for most people, it's about having flexibility and more time to do high value things. Whatever it is for you, be specific. So let's say 10 hours a week. Okay, so now we have at least a clear enough trajectory to get started. You want to create an online business that earns you $50K per month after expenses and taxes, that takes you 10 hours a week to run. And I want to make an important note. If it's hard for you to imagine earning $50K per month while working 10 hours a week, don't change these numbers because you're scared of not achieving them and possibly being disappointed in yourself. This is your target and you should never compromise. Everything you do going forward will be to achieve this. Determine what product or service you're going to offer. You're probably creating an online business not just for the cash, but for the flexibility that it offers. It's really important to keep this in mind when you're figuring out what product or service you want to offer. For me, the main goal was to get away from trading my time for money. The reason for this is because A, I want to maximize my free time and do more meaningful things. And B, because trading your time for money limits your earning potential and you're really not achieving financial freedom. For example, if you want to start an online coaching business where you meet clients via Zoom or Teams, this certainly allows more location flexibility. You can do a Zoom from anywhere, but you're still trading your time. Even if you charge, say, $500 an hour and you work 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, you limit your gross earnings to $30,000 per week. You might be okay with this, but just remember there's always going to be a cap to how much you can earn because you're still trading your time for money. Now, if you're really set on an online coaching business or similar service, you could hire a team of coaches who will trade their time for money. You'll charge clients, then pay your coaches and other expenses, and you'll keep the difference. This can be an okay business model that you can automate, but it's not my favorite because of the build time and complexity. Now, my favorite type of business revolves around digital products because the ridiculously low overhead and because there's really no limit to what you can earn, like when you're trading your time for money. For example, the e-learning industry is worth around $253 billion. And while it includes some instructor-led online learning, most is with online courses that can be taken on demand. In fact, several of my most lucrative businesses focus exactly on this. Essentially, I've taken my knowledge and skills and converted them to an on-demand digital product that can be purchased concurrently an infinite number of times without me. This means that the earning potential of those products isn't limited by available time or available supplies and materials. Online stores that sell physical products also aren't my favorite, but there are a lot of online stores that are insanely lucrative, so this can definitely work for you. Regardless of the product or service you choose, you need to solve a problem and provide value. And remember, it's always better to offer products or services that people are already looking for. Don't create something just because you think it's awesome and think you'll be able to convince people to buy it. Obviously, it's much harder to find customers and convince them to buy something they weren't looking for rather than just selling them something they were looking for. Do your research to make sure people want to buy your product or service. And don't worry if there are a lot of competitors for what you want to offer. This is actually great news and means there's a high demand for your product. All you have to do is make your product or service just a little bit better or market or position yourself better than your competitors. Take action. Take action. Get moving now. Just do something. I don't care if you don't feel like it. If you want to be successful, you need to do what needs to be done regardless of how you feel. This is where you're gonna need to make sacrifices. Instead of going out to party or watching Netflix, you're gonna need to stay your ass at home or in the office and work on your hustle. Of course, you want to do high value things first. However, there's a simple thing that I did and still do to play off my motivation and lack of motivation for certain things. Now, most of the time, when you think of creating a business or accomplishing any goal really, you view it in a linear timeline where tasks are chronological and you need to complete this task before you can move on to this one. There are absolutely dependencies that need to be completed before other things can get started, but not everything. Instead of a timeline, I look at it more like a big puzzle. If I approach an area of the puzzle that I don't feel like doing, there are for sure other areas in the puzzle that I'm more motivated to complete. For example, let's say you want to create a business that sells an online course teaching people how to train their cat. There's a lot of different things you need to do to build that out. You need to register the business, open bank accounts, create a website, write the course script, video the course, edit the video, integrate it into your learning platform, create marketing materials. You get the picture. Now, registering the business might be the first thing you laid out in your plan, but that doesn't mean you can't work on something else at a time when your motivation level isn't aligned with that. In fact, I think if you leverage this correctly, you can be even more effective. There have been many times where I've had administrative things up next on my task list, but the thought of working on them at that moment was devastating. Instead, I would jump into some creative work like course development or web design, something that I felt like doing at that time, and I would end up doing the best work of my life. Turns out that I was in a creative mode, and it was actually better to procrastinate on the admin stuff so I could take advantage of that. Now, you can't always do this. There are times when something specific needs to get done, and you just need to suck it up and do it. But you should never have an excuse for not doing anything. You can always work on something. And here's the amazing part. As you get closer to completing the puzzle, you become more motivated to finish even the parts you have the hardest time getting motivated to do. If you do this, you're gonna complete the puzzle faster than you think. And remember, everything doesn't need to be perfect. I used to be a perfectionistic procrastinator and would have a really hard time starting things because the circumstances weren't perfect, and then finishing things because I didn't think they were perfect. And I had to keep going back to revise them. Seriously, I created this course once, and every time I finished it and reviewed it, I saw all these places where it could be better. So I would redo it and then repeat that. And I'm embarrassed to say this, but I did this for like 3 years. That single act of procrastination delayed me by like 3 years. I finally just said, fuck it. I'm gonna release it the way it is. I don't care if it's not perfect. And that was one of the biggest steps that I took in my progression. Many people never take that step and they stay stuck there forever. Remember, every successful product or service started with a version 1. Invest in yourself. And what I mean specifically is you need to learn the skills that are required to accomplish your goals. Believe it or not, I've only recently started taking investing more seriously in the last few years. I mean, I did have some real estate and have always put money away in retirement accounts, but I'm talking more direct investing in the markets. So I've never thought about it much because I never learned about it. I was always told that saving was the way to go. But also I think because I was hyper-focused on increasing my earning potential, aka getting rich. Then, when I started to look more closely at the stock market, crypto, and other assets, I initially was really bummed out that I didn't start investing earlier. And just recently am I starting to realize that the last decade plus of working on increasing my earning potential was actually the best investment I could have ever made for myself. And it's paid and will continue to pay more than stocks, crypto, real estate, and other assets ever could. When I decided to create an e-learning business, I said that I was gonna learn and create everything myself rather than hiring people. Now, there are a lot of negatives to this. The most obvious is the timetable for becoming profitable. After all, I had to learn how to create a website, how to create online courses, how to write marketing copy, how to set up Google Ads, how to organically show up in Google search, and basically a ton of other things that go into building a business. A lot of it is self-taught trial and error, but I also took a bunch of online courses, read a crap load of books, listened to podcasts and audiobooks, watched YouTube videos, attended training programs, and so much more. So here's the point. These skills are with me forever. And not only can I use them to grow my existing businesses, but they help me to provide value to others, start new businesses, and so much more. I have so many options and my earning potential is huge. Let's say that for some crazy reason, I lost all my tangible assets in businesses. I still have my knowledge and skills, which are actually my most valuable assets, and the very things that resulted in me acquiring my tangible assets. So I could just do it again. Now, you don't have to do everything yourself, and you shouldn't, especially if you're looking to shorten the timeline to when you reach your initial goal. But pick a couple things to learn right off the bat that are related to your business and learn as much as you can. Become an expert. For example, if you're gonna start a blog, learn to write really well. Become the best writer. Take courses on creative writing, copywriting, SEO, and anything else related. The point is, develop yourself and increase your lifetime earning potential by learning high value, high demand skills. If you have $1,000 in your hand right now to spend, where do you think you're gonna get the highest ROI? Investing in some rando stock or investing in yourself? Persevere. I've said this throughout my life, but I really didn't get it until I came this close to giving up. I had spent several years working on my first e-learning business, and my revenue was stagnating around 5 to 7K per month. Yeah, I know that's not terrible since it was a side hustle, but it was nowhere near my initial goals. And I remember approaching the end of one particular calendar year and thinking, man, I've tried everything. I've worked my ass off. I just don't think that this is gonna work for me. And that's fine. I have a pretty good career that makes good money, 5 to 7K a month extra. Side income is cool. I guess I can just deal with living in the same location and not have the flexibility that I want. I kind of gave up. Not kind of, I gave up. And then for some reason, I was like, no, I'm gonna make one more attempt and try something different. I saved up most of my vacation from my day job that year and scheduled it around the holidays, so I had most of December off. I worked on my business every single day throughout December, 16 to 20-hour days mostly. And then in January, I spent every night after my day job working on the business until 2 a.m. and then 16 hours on Saturday and Sunday. Finally, at the end of January, I was ready to relaunch my business with the changes I made in the last 2 months. And this was it for me. If this didn't work, I was prepared to live the rest of my life as an employee. In February, I broke the 7K point and reached 10K. In March, I did around 16K. In April, I surpassed that, and it has continued to grow exponentially since then. And it's so crazy when I think back and realize how close I was to giving up when I was so close to it. It was like right there. And I remember shortly after, I came across this image and just stared at it forever because it's so profound. This was such a huge lesson for me. And now when I say keep going, it's coming from a different place, and I truly mean it. I really think that this is the difference between people who succeed and those who don't. If you keep going, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Measure progress. Okay, finally, measure your progress and reevaluate continuously. How could you possibly know if you're achieving your goals if you don't measure your progress? And there's this famous saying, what gets measured gets managed. And it's absolutely true. Now, you're gonna have to come up with your own metrics based on your specific goals and scenario, but I recommend taking your larger goals and breaking them down into smaller goals, and then measuring those daily, weekly, monthly, and so on. And remember, things rarely turn out exactly as you imagine them. This is part of the learning process. When you reevaluate and measure your progress, it allows you to course correct, refine your goals, and hone the actions that need to be taken to achieve them. And there it is, the 7 super important things that I did to create multiple online businesses and achieve true financial freedom. And I really believe if any of these were omitted, I wouldn't be where I am today. I really hope you learned something and that this video helped you in some way. Let me know in the comments where you're at with your progression. Are you just starting? Are you stuck somewhere in the middle? Or are you watching this from your Scrooge McDuck money bin? That's all I got for today. Thanks again for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. It really helps the channel. If you want to see more videos like this, consider subscribing. Hit the little bell icon to get notifications when new videos are released. Keep at it, and I'll see you soon.